Hi, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Gaudium at Spez22.com YouTube video and Podbean podcast. I'd like you to welcome to the show today, before I make any announcements here, Mr. Sean Forrest. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you so much, brother. So good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Just a quick announcement, once again, to remind people I am moving in a few days. Thursday, actually. This is Monday, and I'm moving on Thursday, as you can tell by the empty bookshelves behind me. And so there will not be any more podcasts for probably a few weeks as I have to get settled in a new place. And then I'm heading off to Notre Dame for a conference in South Bend. And then I had to give a talk up at St. Thomas More in New Hampshire. And so there's a lot going on in between getting moved. So this will be the last podcast for a while. So you're getting in at the wire, Sean. So that's great.
Just made it.
All right. Well, I had never heard of Sean before, and I got an email from my editor at the National Catholic Register, Mr. Tom Wayner, who I love, great guy, and he said, "Well, Larry, you're a Catholic worker, and you have a devotion to the poor, and the living out of the universal cult to holiness and the Sermon on the Mount, following the teachings of Dorothy Day. You might like this guy I know, Sean Forrest." And I said, "Well, tell me more about it." So, in a nutshell, I'll have Sean explain a little more detail. I'm going to hold up his book here that he sent to me graciously. It's called Haiti180, Turn It Around, A Sinner's Journey to Answer God's Call in Haiti, a missionary memoir. And Sean is the founder of Haiti 180. I'll say, yeah, when I back in my time as a seminarian, in the early 80s, I lived in the Dominican Republic for a year, learning some Spanish, and I did make my way over to Haiti a couple of times. Was the despair? Dominican Republic is not exactly, at least it wasn't then, an affluent country, lots of poverty, but
Right.
I was still shocked by what I saw and encountered when I went to Port-au-Prince. And it really moved me deeply. So when Tom Wayner said you had started this outreach, this missionary activity in Haiti, I immediately leapt at the chance to talk to you about this. So why don't you just begin by telling us who you are, how you got to where you are, and then we can move into a discussion of Haiti 180.
Great. I'll give you the shortened version instead of my whole testimony. I was born back in 19 no, so I uh I was playing out doing music, secular music and all those things. Not enough, searching for God. Um Came through all kinds of started as a Baptist, was born a Baptist, and in the bar days became more like Buddhist, Hindu kind of thing, and then found my way to the Catholic Church, which is a whole nother story. And then, I started hanging out doing men's groups and doing all the things you're supposed to do, checking off all the boxes. I'm going to mass, loving it. I was a total zealot, reading every, Scott Hahn book, everything you can get,
Yeah.
so I could destroy the enemy trying to win conversations about authority and things like that. And then it hit me one day. It's a longer story than this, but one day it hit me that I was mostly just talking about the faith. I wasn't doing it. I became I used to run about 100 confirmation retreats a year after I converted. I became a youth minister and then a speaker, Steubenville conferences, the whole thing. And I just found myself always talking about the works of the saints. And I was just going, well, I don't, how do I get up on stage and talk about these great saints and yet not have any works myself? Now it's great preaching to people, but when you're in a conference, everybody's paid about $100 a ticket to see you. So you can get up there and burp and they're going to put their hands up and say, praise God sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, I want my money's worth. Praise God. And I was just going, I'm just reading the scripture. I'm going, there should be a lot more suffering involved here. Because the suffering I had was getting on stage and have people kiss your butt all weekend for giving a 45-minute talk on stage and kind of like that celebrity status. So the worst suffering I had was maybe a delay in Denver in my flight getting home. And it was just a real tension there. And so I just heard Mother say the sentence, the poorest of the poor, read Matthew 25 and became convicted that just speaking wasn't enough for me. For me, I'm not judging anybody else. I'm just saying for me,
I hear you.
yeah.
I hear you. So I was remiss in my all too brief introduction of you to my listeners and viewers. Yeah, your bio does mention that you were and still are a musician. Uh, what kind of music did you do? This isn't, a little bit of a tangent, but I am. You live in Nashville now, so were you a country music kind of guy or something else?
I wasn't until I got here, to be honest, man. I grew up Billy Joel, Elton John, the whole thing, Jimmy Buffett. So I was playing, local college pubs when I was in college. Then it took off and had a really good career with it, playing really big, ski clubs. And in the summer, be playing in the beaches. But it was mostly like happy hour entertainment kind of stuff. And then I wanted to start writing my own stuff because you can only sing Margaritaville so many times before you stop.
One of
And
my
then
favorite songs, though, by the way.
it's a great one, but when you sing it 6 nights a week to people who won't even remember that you sang it that night was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So the reason why it's not a total tangent. The reason why I bring it up is that it's a common story, right? That people are successful in basically secular life and secular existence, and they have a skill and a talent and they go for it, but then they reach a certain point, which sounds like you reached, where you just say, well, this just ain't enough. This just isn't enough. And it sounds you became a Baptist first, so you must have been after going through a kind of Buddhist phase. Yeah, I think we've all been there, right? Haven't we all gone through our Buddhist phase at some point or another, where you just throw up your arms and say it's all darkness. I'm just going to meditate. So, uh, what I don't want to say. I want to get to the Haiti part, but this your life story fascinates me uh, because it's I think something listeners would be interested in. What was it about your life as a musician that you suddenly stopped and said, "I need God in my life," or "I need something deeper in my life"?
It, short story, I got to a point where I was making a lot of money. I'd perform shows where Billy Joel was at, Christy Brinkley. Things were really taking off for me. And this is actually a really funny story. It involves a priest. I was on stage singing, and I worked out back then. It was all about, like, hey, you got to look good. So I used to wear this cross, but it was more for decoration, because it looked good with my black shirt. It made my chest look bigger, really, really cool.
Yeah,
So
you
I'm
did
on
the whole Johnny
stage.
Cash thing. Yeah,
That's right, the man in black.
that's right.
And I was doing my happy hour shows even on Sunday. And a pastor of one of the churches had a young adult program, and they stopped going to church and they were coming to my happy hour show. They stopped doing that thing. So one day he came into the bar. Now, this bar holds like 1,700 people. It was a show. I wasn't like in the corner, people jumping up and down. I had a wireless mic. It was a really involved show. And this guy, I just saw him out of the corner of my eye, start little short Italian fella, and he comes walking right up to the stage with a mission. And he looks at me, goes, "Come here." And I go, I thought he was going to request a song. And I go, yeah. Do you want to hear something? He goes, "You should take your cross off." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I'm not judging your soul, but I bet if you died right now, you go straight to hell." And then he walked out, and I was like, it's like
Well,
what?
that's a splash of cold water in the face.
I tell most people, don't try that approach. Um, but it got me thinking just a little bit. It put a seat like, is there a hell? What? Wow. I am wearing this cross for jewelry, not for. And so that, along with, honestly, I remember singing Margaritaville and this guy dancing in front of me, and he was very intoxicated. And then after I finished playing it, he uh, looked at me with his eyes like going around like cuckoo, and he goes, "Do you know Margaritaville?" And I'm like, "You just danced to it." I was like, I was like, "All right, man.
Oh
There's got to be
man.
more to life." I went home and I looked out my window. I lived on a condo. I live in a condo on the beach with like 4 private beaches. I had a fishing boat out there. Like I had everything. I'm
Yeah.
winning the game. And I went like this. I have my boat. I've got 4 private beaches. I got my car. I'm playing everywhere. I got fame that's just growing. And the emptiness of that moment was so powerful. And I'm like, but I'm not happy. And then I go, well, if I get more money and more fame, I already did the math before I hit rock bottom with the music career. And all of a sudden, I felt this pain in my chest, and it started throbbing down in my left arm, and it felt like it was going up in my jaw, and I couldn't breathe, and my vision started closing. And I went, "I'm having a heart attack,"
Wow.
and I was like, "I'm gonna die. Is there a hell?" That priest came to me, and I'm like, "Because if there is, I'm going there." Because I had a lot of blessings, and I served myself well with them. And I didn't have a heart attack. I suffered a massive panic attack.
Yeah.
I'm a
I've had
6 foot
those.
four ex boxer curled up in a ball, and I just asked three questions. I just knelt down and said, "God, if you're there, how do I know you're there? Who are you, and why am I alive?" And I just really need to seek out the answer to those questions, and that set me on their journey of this. God's called me to something. I'm knocking, not knocking anybody who plays in a bar, but for me, God was saying, "I need your attention." So He put His thumb to me, let me experience this panic attack of emptiness and
Wow. What a
joy.
story. Wow.
Oh yeah,
I've had
crushed.
panic attacks. I had a panic attack once that sent me to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack, just like
Is
you.
it? Isn't it
Yeah.
the worst feeling? It's
It's
horrible.
terrible. You actually, it does imitate all of the symptoms of a heart attack.
Yeah,
And the thing is, you don't, it comes on you suddenly. You don't feel panicked. It's not like you're in a panic and then all of a sudden you have a panic attack. It's all of a sudden all these physiological changes come over your body because of some kind of subconscious stress that you have not consciously dealt with. And then it just washes over you and it takes you completely by surprise.
yeah. And then you start worrying, am I going to have another one? Which causes
Yeah.
you to have another pain. You get in this vicious loop, and man, it wrecked
Yeah.
me for a while.
Yeah. Okay. I've had a few of those. But anyway, that's a fascinating story, and I'm glad you unpacked it a little bit. Uh, I have to say too, I had a similar experience like you had, where you said to yourself, "I'm doing all of this youth ministry. I'm making all these talks. I'm going around doing the Scott Hahn Christian evangelization sort of thing, and Catholic apologetics." But it's not enough. I'm talking the talk, but I'm not walking the walk. I can really identify with that because that's what led. I was a professor of theology for 25 years,
Mm,
and I was teaching courses on social justice and the Catholic worker movement and Dorothy Day and the Sermon on the Mount, and all the while living a cushy professor's life, eating at the best restaurants, summers off, traveling around, and it just both my wife and I realized we're because she's a PhD in theology as well. And it just came to us both at the same time. We need to get out of this gig. And that's what led us to, we started a Catholic worker farm, which we're now selling just because I'm too old to run a farm anymore. But
yeah,
we're going to continue the Catholic worker ministry in the city of Scranton through a food pantry and stuff like
that's
that
amazing.
that we're going to be working on. But nevertheless,
Did you both come to that realization like at the same time, or did you say, "Hey, honey, here's how I'm feeling"?
well, it's interesting. We have a friend of ours, Father John Gribowich, who was a former student of ours at DeSales University, where we taught. And yeah, Carrie and I, my wife and I, had just been thinking about this independently of each other. We hadn't been talking about it very much. And Father John, he wasn't a priest then, but he had become, it's a long story, he had become like an adopted son to us. It's a long story, but we were very close. And his father died. And in the last days of his father's life, we were sitting around our living room and we started talking about Dorothy Day and the Catholic worker movement. And John was going to come into a little bit of money from his father once he passed, and we had some equity in our house. And so all three of us at the same time said, why don't we start a Catholic worker house?
Wow,
It was crazy. All
it's
three of
amazing.
us had been thinking about the same thing independently of each other. And when I don't remember which one of us suggested it first, then it was a cascade of emotion and thoughts and plans. And a few months later, we were in Harvey's Lake, Pennsylvania, opening up a Catholic worker farm.
I love
And
it. That's
people,
great.
I'm originally from Nebraska, so people just assume I knew everything about farming, and I don't. I grew up in the city of Lincoln and had a certain Lincoln urban snobbery towards my fellow rural Nebraskans. So which I have since gotten rid of. But the fact is, Carrie refers to me as the YouTube farmer because everything I know about farming I learned on YouTube because I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. A lot of
That's
trial and
amazing.
error. Yeah, it's a
That's
crazy story.
amazing. Oh
Crazy
man,
story. But
what a
anyway,
jump.
Oh, it was a jump, and it's been a wild ride. It's been an adventure, and we're glad that we did it. But my 67-year-old back has been telling me I can't lift hay bales anymore or
Yeah.
dig trenches and that kind of stuff. So it's done. Anyway, so what? So we, you and I have both came to the realization, right? We need to live the Sermon on the Mount. We need to live, the least, what you do to the least of my brothers, you do unto me, and so on. We both came to that realization. Why Haiti? What led you to Haiti?
Well, honestly, I went to my pastor and I just listen, I'm feeling called to serve the poorest of the poor. I just heard that Mother Teresa somewhere. I read that or something. That thought stayed with me. I said I want to go someplace where there's no 911, where there's no soup kitchen, where there's no hope. It's, of course they have hope in Christ, but where if you have an asthma attack, you're dying. I want to go to those people who don't have a Bible to hear the whole gospel. And he said, "Well, I'm leaving for Haiti in 2 weeks." And I was like, can I go?" He's like, "Absolutely." So I was ready to pack my bags and head to Africa because I had no idea where Haiti was.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm like, well, I don't know all the poor people in Africa. I was just clueless, I was just this young idiot. And so when he told me, it's 90 minutes off the coast of Miami, I was blown away. So yeah, my first mission trip was 24 years ago. And I took off to go just to experience it and see it.
And
That's why it was Haiti.
was did it have this immediate impact on you when you got there and spent those few weeks there? Were you like, okay, this is it. This is what I want to devote my life to, or did it have to gestate for a while?
It was one profound moment. And so I went over there just with my guitar. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to save Haiti by singing Margaritaville. What am I going to do over there? And we went to an orphanage, and I was excited to go to an orphanage. I've always loved children. And I brought my guitar over, and I'm like, hey, if I can just sing some songs for him, make him happy, that'll be great. But it was a really profound moment happened to me. I write about it, and it was emotional just writing about it in that book because it started everything.
Yeah,
I uh, I went to the orphanage and I walked in. There's about 300 kids, and some caretakers, but not enough. And the kids some of them were facing the walls and just blank stares in their look on their face. And I went in and I would like rub one kid's head and say, hey, sing a song, and nothing back. And I just, for some reason, this term came to me, dead eyes. They looked at me with dead eyes. Like there was no emotion in their face, just like almost looking through me. And it was because they, there weren't enough people to hold them. Like they were loved, but not loved on enough. And so
yeah.
without touch, human beings just kind of shut down. And I was really bummed about it. I was like, man, I was hoping to have this beautiful, hey, I'm singing songs, and that didn't happen. So I started to walk away, and a little boy came over. He walked across purposefully and stood right in front of me and put his hands on his hips. And I go, hey, how you doing, man? And I went to pick him up, and one of the directors there grabbed my arm and said, don't touch him. And I said, why? And he goes, he's got scabies all over him. And, that's a mite gets under your skin, really contagious. And I backed away because she turned him around and he had all these open sores on his back too from laying on the ground, non-movement. And they're like, if we touch the kids too long, we get sick and then we can't take care of them. So I was like, I don't want to get sick in Haiti. So I just patted him on the head and said, hey, buddy, God bless you. And I started to walk away. And I don't want to say I didn't hear a voice, but a thought outside of me came into my heart and was so strong, it just stopped me. And it was the Holy Spirit convicted me. It was just Jesus saying, so I'll die on a cross and wear your sins, but you won't pick me up because you're afraid of a rash. And it
Wow.
was like God was saying in this moment, do you really want to do this? Or do you want to be somebody who comes over once a year, get your pictures with the Haitian babies, puts them on Facebook, and look at what I'm doing, so you build yourself up? Or do you want to do it? Because if you do, you're going to suffer.
Boy, that is
And
powerful.
it was. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I put down my guitar and I just grabbed the kid and I picked him up and he hugged me. And then I let go of him and he was still just dangling there and he was giggling and I was swinging him around. And when he started laughing, all the other kids kind of like woke up and they're like, hey, that guy holds us. And they all ran at me. And I'm playing with these kids, and I always joke about this. I was covered in snot, everything. I was just like, oh, and it was this beautiful moment. But in the back of my head, I'm like, this is so beautiful, and I'm definitely dying from this encounter with all the disease.
I'm going to get the scabies. Now,
That's
wait a
right.
minute. Was there a language barrier?
There was, there was definitely a language barrier, but it's interesting though. When people say, love, can speak all languages, it was true. You could just connect with thoughts and smiles, and music was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
really powerful. But I asked God, I said, God, if you'll help me, I'll build an orphanage. But
Wow.
it'll be an orphanage it'll be a home for former orphans. They're going to get loved on. And God said yes. But that was the pivotal moment, that first trip where I was like, it was really God saying, do you really want to do this? Because it's messy. It's not
Yeah,
romantic after
yeah,
a while.
yeah.
And boy, did I
That
learn
is,
that.
boy, that is so true. It is amazing to me how similar in some ways our story is. When
Mm.
I was in the Dominican Republic, I developed I must have sat on some sort of poison ivy type plant at the beach at Playa Sosua because my rear end, and I won't go into details, developed a nasty rash that became raised and horrible. I thought I was going to have to declare myself as a plant in customs. That's how bad it was. It was taken over. So I talked to the head of the Spanish school I was at, an expatriate Cuban named Oscar Canizares. And Oscar's set me up with this dermatological clinic, yeah, and he rode me there on the back of his little scooter, which was painful on my derriere. And we got there, and he convinced me that she said you should wear your clerical garb, your seminarian clothing, because that will get you access. And I felt very guilty about it, but he assured me, no, you really should do this. So I did. So I walk into this waiting room, and I'm there, and all these people sitting there. And there was a young woman sitting there, and she was holding a child who had scabies, like you described. And she saw my clerical clothing, and she walked over to me, and she said, "Hey, padre, blessing on my child." And I said, no, no, no soy un padre. But she didn't. Okay, I figured, okay, I'm going to say a prayer. So I raised my hand to say a prayer, and she goes, no, 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 no. And she grabbed my hand and put it on the kid's head, and I pulled away.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Lo siento, señorita, pero tengo miedo. I'm sorry, young lady, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid. And she said, okay. And she sort of walked. I felt so ashamed at
Wow.
that moment. When I left, I did pray over the child, but when I left, that story haunted me. That moment haunted me for the rest of my time in the Dominican Republic, and it really was a conversion experience. And for
Wow.
me, and I swore that if I never became a priest, but I swore if I ever became a priest, I would never, ever, ever do that to a human being in need ever again. But
Wow.
it changed me, just like that moment changed you. At least you had the wherewithal to turn around, set down your guitar, and go over and embrace the child.
Mm.
I didn't have such a moment, so I was a bit of a coward. I'll say that right now. Tengo miedo. I'm afraid. But it's a normal human reaction, right?
Yes.
When you see that, and I mean, it brings home stories of saints who have kissed the wounds of lepers and things like that.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so anyway, let's move on then to how you then got to starting the orphanage and the medical clinic and everything that you've done down there.
So when God said, go ahead, Bill, I started with, it's just going to be an orphanage. That's great. Nice and easy. And so I went back and used my musical skills to start doing concerts to raise money for it. And it was kind of a neat thing to be singing for something besides, tequila, and money and drunkenness. It was nice to have this. Wow, now I'm using my gift. So I was more excited to sing than I ever had, and put a great team around me, raise the money, put up this. Every building we build, we want it to be gorgeous because it's like this is where God's living. This is where Jesus is going to be. So we built this beautiful orphanage. Then the earthquake hit the day we were supposed
Yes,
to open it.
I was going to ask
Um,
about that. What year was this?
2010.
Yeah, that was the earthquake.
We're opening the orphanage, and the earthquake happened the day before we were supposed to open. I was supposed to be there the day after. I was supposed to be there the day after the earthquake, but the earthquake was just so brutal. I couldn't get down there, and it was just mayhem. I got a call that, hey, Haiti's destroyed, and I was like, what? Just went through the horrors of that. The horrors were just brutal. I finally got down there, and just what I saw was just catastrophic. It was horrible, and I'm shortening this for you, but during that time, I was asked to go to Mexico, an organization called Unidos por Ellos. When I couldn't get to Haiti, I had to do something. So this company invited us down to Mexico City and to help us, and they donated a school. They're like, we want to give you a prefab school, and I was like, that's great, but they're all starving, and I don't think we can eat this school. So at the time, I'm like, we don't have the money to fund this. Why are you giving me a school? Now I see what a blessing it's been. So we received the school. We have 400 kids in our school, and every kid passes the state exam. It's one of the top two schools in the state. And then we built this beautiful chapel, which is great, with the Blessed Sacrament in there. And we helped to build two other churches outside. And then we had the issue of this is really neat. God writes really cool stories. So up in Haiti in the mountains, the parents have to decide sometimes, make this difficult decision, who's going to eat today? Is it going to be our kids or grandma? And grandma will be like, I'm not going to take the kids' food. So she'll go to a hut to die. So I remember coming up on this woman. People would tell us, hey, this woman's going to die. She's just laying on a mat in a straw thatched house with her coffin above her and her grave dug in front of her because she's starving to death. So we went to visit her, and I was just like, the whole team together was like, this can't happen. We need to build a house for the dying. So we did, we raised the money and got it. And then we started rescuing these elderly and bringing them over there to die peacefully. In my mind, I'm thinking, we'll sing songs to them as they die. Except we built it near the orphanage, and the kids in the orphanage were like, hey, man, what's going on over there? So they came over and they started sitting in the elderly people's laps and started doing their nails and asking the elderly to read to them. And then the elderly all of a sudden started getting the sacraments because we'd have visiting priests come in, and the elderly were like, I can't like this. I'm not going to die. So we turned it into a nursing home because they wouldn't die. So we had to change the whole focus. So this whole like grandparent thing happened, which was so amazing. And then finally, people were just suffering from things they shouldn't suffer. The director of my mission over there, Emmanuel, his father, died in the back of his car with his children from an asthma attack because they couldn't get an inhaler. So I'm like, we need to build a medical clinic. And God bless us with some generous people and a lot of work. We've had over 2,000 missionaries from all over the place come over to help. And we put up this incredible medical facility, so we can do some trauma care, emergency care, a birthing center, eye care, dental care. We have a handout medicine. So blood work, lab work, and a pharmacy. Just really amazing. And we feed 1,500 people every day because the droughts have just totally destroyed their crops out there. So it's
Wow.
this little if God had shown me this from the beginning, I would have run probably, but it just happened naturally, the progression.
So the island of Hispaniola is undergoing a drought right now.
It has been. And then when they get rain, it's brutal rain,
Yeah. Oh
which will
yeah. The
cause
one I know. Oh
mudslides,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's really no soil in Haiti because that all when remember they had to deforest their country to pay off the
Yeah.
war debt with France. So it's just clay. And when that gets hit with a lot of water, I mean, I've seen rivers completely change direction from last time I was there because of the rocks and the mudslide were, oh, the river's now going this way. It's that powerful. So between drought and then just damaging mudslides, they've in our area, it's horrible.
So what is the political situation in Haiti right now? I mean, I would imagine it's unstable, and I also imagine there's not a whole lot of governmental infrastructure to help people who are in poverty.
There really isn't anything. Uh, there's a police department kind of fractured, people quitting because you have 10,000 gang members there strong. There's the the gang of eight, is it they call it, the gang of nine, and they're 10,000. And for whatever reason, they've got fully automatic weapons and all the ammunition you can get, where the police have little pea shooters with maybe 3 or 4 bullets and a gun from 1985. Why that is a whole topic itself. So, you know, I got to be careful how I say this. The Biden program came out to bring the Haitians over to the United States, and
Yeah.
man, there and in my eyes, it was just the biggest disaster, I believe, for the Haitian people. Because if you wanted to come over, you had to have enough money to do it. You had to know somebody in the States. You had to have a passport. And so, who are the only people in Haiti who have those things? The rich. So we're
The well
losing our
off.
doctors. So the poorest of the poor get
Screwed.
screwed again. Yeah. And so there's no real infrastructure there. It's just like in the Wild West, and the people live in terror of these gangs.
Yeah.
When are they coming? What are they doing? We've had close calls ourselves. And some of my trips down there have just been training our people how to defend ourselves.
Yeah. When I was there, it was still under Baby Doc, Jean-Jacques Duvalier.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, essentially, you had an organized crime syndicate running the country. Uh, it was awful, just horrible. But
Yeah.
at least at least under him, there was some kind of stability, even though it was draconian and imposed through force. And now it seems just as an observer from afar to have descended into a kind of chaos.
Yeah. Well, mostly just in Port-au-Prince, right? The rest of the country, wherever the gangs aren't, the people are
Yeah,
good because they're kind, loving people who just want to pray and eat. But so
yeah,
the struggle I have is people go, well, why would I give money there? It's just gang. Nobody gets the money and the evil of it. And I'm like, hey, we've got our own struggles here, in the state. I'm like, the Haitians don't kill their unborn. They
yeah.
know like, hey, that's a dude. That's a like we do some pretty messed up stuff here, some like Haiti's cursed. I'm like, oh, really? Well, you have everything. And look what we're doing with it.
Yeah.
Pornography, child trafficking, all these things that happen in third world countries happen even more here. So it's like, who's cursed? After when the earthquake happened, killing 275,000 people, 1 month later, 100,000 Haitians went to the Capitol building with their drums to worship God. And they told the devil, as quoted saying, one man, we want to show the devil we could shake the ground with our faith. Um,
Wow. What a
right?
story.
Yeah, incredible, right? So the tragedy happens. What do they do? What would we do? Sell out, run out of toilet paper.
Yeah, I bet they showed up too in the multicolored buses and everything. That was one of the things Haitians love to decorate their vehicles in
They
all
do. It's
kinds of
amazing. It's
wild
amazing.
colors, wild colors.
Jesus
Uh,
here, serve Jesus. So
oh
anyhow,
yeah,
so it is a mess. It's a mess where the gangs are. And there has to supposedly 4,000 UN troops are coming who can actually be active this time. Because before it was don't fire unless fired upon. So the gangs are like, don't fire at them. Let's go over here. So they really didn't help that much. But supposedly this next group coming in is like, let's clean this up. So now the gangs are like, hey, we're open to talking. Yeah, we want to talk all of a sudden. So that would be incredible. When you hear talks of it, when's it going to happen? I don't know. But it'll
God.
make my life easier. I head over there in about a week, in 2 weeks. So it's just anything will help. Just the
And
safety.
they're uh, aren't they going to be hit by a hurricane soon, within the next few days?
Well, I believe it's getting mostly Jamaica.
Jamaica.
And so
Yeah,
the Haiti's getting a lot of rain, but I don't believe the full brunt unless it's changed in the past couple of hours. So, gosh, yes, I pray to God they don't get smashed by a massive
a major
hurricane.
hurricane. The
Yeah,
the earthquake when it happened, wasn't that the earthquake that Sean Penn showed up? The actor Sean Penn showed up afterwards and spent,
yeah.
I don't know, he spent a long time there actually. I gained a lot of respect for Sean Penn. Of course, then he left, but go ahead.
I think you're. I never know how political people are on what show. Oh, Sean Penn, he's this, he's so liberal. Listen, I'm Catholic to the bone. I love the teachings, everything, but that guy really stayed and worked. So
He did.
yeah, I don't like to say because somebody's theology is off, let's throw them out. I
I
mean,
agree.
a lot of celebrities went over for a day and stayed, and then they stayed in a nice hotel, had their water, and went home. And look how wonderful they are. That dude stayed in and was digging and was burying and put his money into it. So I agree with you. I earned a lot of respect for him in that moment. I kind of look at it like this. It's like if my family's buried under dirt and you come over for a picture and a photo op and then you leave, or your theology is spot on, you're incredible, but you're not digging, and then Sean Penn comes and digs me out. Sorry, I got more respect for the guy helping dig me out than I do for you and your wonderful theology.
Yeah, amen to that. I remember in the neighborhood I grew up in, Lincoln, Nebraska, we got hit with a tornado one time, and
Oof.
the neighbors across the street who were Jehovah Witnesses, who we always look down our noses at, all those weirdos with the magazines coming to your front door, they
Mhm.
were out there helping us saw trees and get stuff out of the road. And it's like, okay, I don't care about your comic book religion. You're here helping me,
That's
and
right.
that's what matters. That's what matters when push. They were nice people, very nice people.
Hmm.
So, what is right now, currently? What are the economic prospects for Haiti right now?
There's, I got to be careful. There's really not much. Uh, there's not really industry in Haiti. It's all just hey, just selling. Selling products. Th- there is coffee that they sell, but there's nothing mega from Haiti that I've ever seen that's helping to change the whole financial structure. Because like where do you build there, especially with the gangs, because they're going to take it over. So you
Yeah,
can't really put up anything until these guys are removed, and that's either we pray and they go away, or they're just destroyed because it's pure evil. I've seen the most horrible things committed against human beings that I won't even say on your show because it's so shocking. Like it's these people are demonic and have no value for another human being. It's horrible. So how do you start an industry knowing they're going to take it over right now?
have you met resistance from them in your work?
We've uh we've had we've had to help people to help us to be able to keep them from coming and getting us. So I've set up and we've trained people to combat anything that's coming at us, and so far we've been good to stop that from moving closer to us. They were 20 minutes from us at one point, and
Wow.
they had to, yeah, they had to be removed.
So, I bring that up because, I want the viewers and listeners to understand that I'm talking to right now a man of courage. That takes some guts. That takes some courage to be down there right now and doing the work that you're doing. So you're really walking the walk. And having worked with the poor myself, um, the, it's a moving experience. Let's just say that. And I'm looking at the cover of your book with these smiling faces, and I remember seeing faces like that. And I remember wondering how could there be such inner joy and
Mm,
happiness come from these little kids when they're living in destitution, abject poverty, when there are gangs and there's violence and there's danger. Some of the ones I met, it was during the AIDS epidemic. A lot of their parents had died of AIDS, or they
man,
close loved ones had died of AIDS. Some of the kids had AIDS, and yet they'd be standing there beaming, smiling at
right?
you. And it made me feel like, oh my God, I'm angry if I don't have half and half in my coffee in the morning. The whole day is,
You and I are the same person.
it's like, yeah. I woke up the other morning and my wife said, no, half and half. I drove half an hour to go buy half and half because my day is not getting started without half and half in my coffee.
That's
Dad gummit.
right. People don't understand how difficult this is.
Yeah, the trials I have to live through. Yeah, yeah, and it does put things into perspective, which is why I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've run into people who have done over, have been living basically these suburban lives. And this is going to lead to my next question. Uh, and they're living just comfortable lives, and they're not bad people. They're good people, just living these comfortable lives. And then they get involved in some sort of, Jesuit volunteer corps, something along those lines, and they go overseas and they do this kind of work with the campesinos in Latino countries or whatever. And they come home completely transformed by the
Mhm.
experience. They do a 180. All right. They
Right.
do this 180. And then their next question is, what can I now do to help you? Because you have to be very careful, right? Where you send your money, because it can go down just into a cesspool. It can go into a rabbit hole and and,
Absolutely.
and disappear. So, do you have you must have like people like that who volunteer and help you out and whose lives are transformed.
We do. So I wanted to make sure that, I didn't become the great white hope of Haiti. So all of our work, we have 100 Haitian employees. It's Haitian run. They're qualified. They're great people. And then we would have missionaries come down to do more like building things or a specialist in the medical
Right.
field, things like that. So we've had over 2,000 missionaries come. Unfortunately, now it's just too dangerous for me to bring anybody with me now. I just don't, I don't, if it's me, it's worrying about yourself versus worrying about you and then three other people. If something really goes wrong, the guilt of something ever happened to somebody else, I just can't do it. So it's difficult to bring people over. But I know that we have people who've become doctors because of working on people in Haiti, nurses, um, uh, wanting to become priests from seeing the priest. So there's a priest named Father Louis Morosny. He's the co-founder of the mission. It's his village we're in, and he has that, that joy of the Haitian people that's captivated.
Yes.
That's just in him. And oh, if I can, just one quick story.
Sure.
It's
No, go
so
ahead.
so I had a group of about 20 high school kids with me, and they were exhausted. We were moving stones all day. Could you move stones? That's what we build all our stuff with. So it's
I've
just
done that. I built an aqueduct with stones. Said it went nowhere.
wonderfully monotonous.
Yeah.
Here's another rock. So we come back. Our chapel was already built, and these kids, their faces are beet red. But it was time for prayer, and in the chapel it's 100 degrees, and I see them just sitting there, and I'm like, hey guys, so it's going to be a time for prayer, and they're like, they had super glue on their butts. I'm like, these kids aren't moving. Father Lewis comes in, just meets these kids, and he's like, how are you? The joy that his love for Christ and that Haitian joy he has.
Yeah.
It's like, I am so excited you guys are here. Listen, can I say mass for you? And they all just ran into the chapel. I couldn't move them with a bulldozer, but the Haitian love of Jesus is so magnetic that you're talking about. So, uh,
It is.
yeah,
It's
so
infectious.
people's lives get transformed. All our kids, I bring them over any group to sit at the feet of our elderly and ask them questions because most of them are blind, they're old, but the depth of love they have in God and the knowledge that's, I believe, supernaturally put into them because no, they didn't have a Bible study. They'll sit and say, "Are you afraid to die?" And I remember this guy named Philo, blind. He used to garden by measuring with his pinky and his thumbs how far the seed should be, and just an amazing man. And he just started laughing. He goes, "Afraid? Am I afraid to die?" He's like, "Are you afraid to go home?" And just said it that simply. And this young man was just so touched by that faith. So people eh, people are so transformed by the simpleness of faith in the Haitian people. And then one of the big things is when they're up on the roof at our orphanage, we had one girl with a group on the last night just say she used an explicit what's the word I'm looking for, explicative, and she said, I'm not going to say it here. She goes, I hate my blanking cell phone. She's like, I haven't had it all week and I have found such peace here. I go to bed thinking of the faces of these beautiful children I played with all day instead of, a stupid TikTok video.
That's right.
So those kind of things have been.
That is so true, and it puts into perspective too. Uh, like Pope Leo, uh, missionary in Peru for 20 years. working with the poorest of the poor in the rural areas of Peru, who just came out with a wonderful apostolic exhortation, Dilexite, on the need to care for the poor and so forth. And, you find certain Catholic groups, very, very conservative, traditionalists, who have been critical of it. Oh, blah, 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 more social justice this, more social justice that. But I tell you what, if you spend time with the poor, like you have, like I have, and you begin to realize that a lot of the debates that plague us in the United States, in Catholic circle. Oh, should Mass be in Latin, or should the priest have his back to the people? And oh, what a horrible thing communion in the hand is. It's just terrible. That's the whole reason why nobody goes to church anymore. There's no reverence. There's no reverence. We need more reverence. Okay, and if we just had more reverence, everybody would come back to church. All right, and so you descend into these. If you've ever been in real poverty and you encounter it, you begin to realize you want to say you do understand that for 99% of the human race, they don't give a damn about this. They're more worried about, do I have food enough to feed my kids
Mm.
tomorrow? Am I going to starve to death? Is my child going to die from lack of medicine? Do I have clean drinking water?
Yes.
you know
Preach.
uh I mean, it's just insane the things that, when I'm on a rant now, but and I'm not saying that some of these other ecclesial issues are not
Right.
important. I don't mean necessarily to mock them, even though I'm mocking them, but I'm mocking them for a purpose,
Right.
which is that we need to have a deeper perspective as Catholics, and to follow the lead right now of Pope Leo, saying we need, as a church, to pay much, much greater attention to the poor. Define poverty however you want, okay? Spiritual poverty, whatever kind of poverty, but material poverty is the baseline, because it robs people. As Dorothy Day always made a distinction between poverty and destitution.
Mm.
And you can still lead fairly noble lives if you're just beset with poverty. But destitution of this kind destroys you. It destroys you. And when you see the joy in the faces of people in Haiti, or where I was in the Dominican Republic, it shatters your illusions as an American as to what happiness is based upon.
Y- Yes. And I just want to run with that for just 20 seconds. When you said, it's like it's the Latin mass. It's like what I want to say to people is like when somebody's like, if you receive communion on the hand, you're going to hell. And I'm like, okay, thanks for that. Do you know the name of a homeless person? No, then shut up. Then shut
Exactly.
up.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like Jesus didn't say if you receive on your hand, you're going to hell. What he did say though is, "Get away from me, I never knew you." And he's going to separate us like goats and sheep because when I was hungry, you did not feed me. That's some real stuff. And I just, this book is ticking people off because it's saying comfort and faith are incompatible. You
Yes.
you can't be a Catholic and be comfortable. There has to be suffering involved, and suffering for Jesus, who is found in the poor. Now, I'm not a hippie. I love I believe in the true presence. I believe in the magisterium.
Well,
But I
yes,
think
exactly.
but I think you nailed it. There's got to be a hierarchy of things of like, yeah, I'm here battling this. That's great. And God's called you that too. But hey, I'm the worship singer. Do you know a homeless person? No, because I'm the worship singer. Well, so
Yeah.
you just sing to the people in the church? Do you know a homeless person? No, I'm the head of the theological blah blah blah. Well, does that excuse you? Because that's great, but Jesus knew more theology than you did, and he knew the names of homeless people because that's where he went.
Yeah.
You're gonna have people hating you because of me right now. No, they're gonna hate me
Well,
because
no, no, they're used to me as well, because we're on the same wavelength here. Just the traditionalists, just when they start to like me because I'm hard on the liberals, because You won't find a more Orthodox Catholic than me, than I am. All right, I'm a huge devotee to the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, and
Amen.
and celebrating the Eucharist with deep and profound reverence and all those sorts of things. You won't find anybody more on board with that mentality than me. So then the trads really say, "Oh yeah, you go, chap, you trash those liberals." But then I turn around and say, "And yet the things you dudes are concerned with, though important in their own way, are not even of penultimate importance. They're way down the hierarchy of importance in terms of
Right.
what the church is up against. What we as Catholics, in the universal call to holiness, in the dignity of our baptism, in living out the Sermon on the Mount, what it is we are actually called to. Okay, and what we are called to is devotion to the least among us. And I have seen many different Eucharistic celebrations in many different forms that are alive in the faith. I've seen Latin masses, I've seen guitar masses, I've seen Dominicano masses, uh, people playing dominoes on the steps while listening to mass, that kind of,
Yeah.
and yet it all works. It all works if the teleology of it, if the goal of it is Christ in the poor,
Mm,
then it is a faith that that's what's the word? That's what breathes fire into the equation of our
yes.
theology. That's what
Yes.
breathes fire into it.
I th- I'll follow up with that by saying in the book I said if you read every new Bible study that comes out, if you read the Bible, if you go to mass and you listen, you have every new worship song, but it doesn't move you to want to love the poorest of the poor and the people on the fringe, you've almost become idolatrous in those things you're using and very close for just for self gratification, because they didn't move you to encounter Christ. The sacraments help us to know Christ and love Him, but they in themselves are not uh, the relationship. You know,
Yeah.
all these things go to love and serve the Lord to go out. And it's like, if those things don't open your heart to say, I need to love somebody that on the fringe over here instead of singing to the choir. I mean, I say this when I speak at men's groups, I get chided for this a little bit, but I say, I hate men's groups. And they're like, why? And I say that for shock value. I go, I just do because I just can't sit around a campfire, smoking a cigar, drinking bourbon, talking about Chesterton all night. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, how cool would it be if one of you guys saw a guy with a sign that says, "Will work for food," and you go, "Hey, I'll tell you what. Why don't you come to my men's group for food?" I go, "Here's how the conversation is going down. Tim, who found the homeless guy, is calling saying, "Hey, Bob, man, I got a homeless guy coming." What do you mean he got a homeless guy? Yeah, man, he's coming to our men's group. What's he gonna? What do you mean he's gonna smell? Yeah, he probably is. You're gonna have to give him a bath in your house. Well, what's he gonna wear? He's probably gonna need one of your suits, Bob. I don't know, man. This makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, that's the men's group I want to be a part of. Because Chesterton, I love him. Aquinas,
Yeah.
incredible. But if it doesn't move us to action, it's self gratification and thinking we're all just so smart, throwing all these quotes out.
Yeah. One of the great untold aspects of the life of C.S. Lewis, speaking of, Chesterton Lewis, that crowd, Lewis died almost penniless. And that's because
Wow.
Lewis took almost every ounce of money that he made from his books and so forth and gave it
Wow.
away to those in need.
I didn't know
Not
that. That's
not a lot of
amazing.
people know that about C.S. Lewis, and so you walk the walk. It's funny you mentioned it. I one of the first things that happened to us when we started the Catholic Worker Farm here was I got a phone call from Catholic Charities out in Missouri, and they had this young Eritrean refugee woman and her son who were being housed by Catholic. She was seeking asylum in the United States, long story. But they wanted to know if she could come live with us so that her case could be adjudicated in Philadelphia, which they thought would give her a much greater chance of asylum than the courts out in Missouri. And I remember distinctly, I mean, we were barely had our feet wet here, and and this is the Holy Spirit, because it ran against everything within me, and I said, yeah, send her. And the voice on the other side said, well, do you need time to get ready? I said, no, send her.
It's
Send her. And I
awesome.
hung up the phone. I told my wife about it. And I said, what are we going to do? Our farmhouse has two bedrooms in it, and one is ours, and the other is about the size of a peanut. So what in the heck how are we going to? We're running a farm, not a hospitality house here. And we both agreed we're going to find a way to make this work. Long story short, she showed up. She stayed with us for a few months, and she's now living in Canada. She has political asylum there. Lovely, lovely, lovely woman. But here's her story. She grew up in Eritrea, war-torn country, as anybody who knows anything about East Africa knows.
Mm.
Poverty-stricken. She fled with her son to Ethiopia. Uh, then from Ethiopia, she was in various camps. Then she got to Sudan. She got hooked up with Catholic groups there who sent her to Mexico. And from Mexico, she was legally sent into, she came into the United States legally and then was in various, detention things and ended up with Catholic Charities up in Missouri before she came to us. Now, the reason why I recount that is once again to underscore she was Ethiopian Orthodox. She's an Orthodox Christian. The courage of this young woman.
Wow.
She's the most courageous woman I've ever met in my entire life. I get just
Wow.
choked up talking about it. And she did it all for her son, so that her son would have a better life, and than what they had in Eric, and the torment that she went through, the arduous journey that she endured, the indignities that she endured, and yet when she showed up on our doorstep, she had a smile on her face, and she was joyous, and she was a gift to us more than we were a gift to her. We
Wow.
were just talking to her on the phone last night. At least my wife was. I was busy, and so I don't mean to dominate this conversation with my life and my
No, it's
story,
beautiful.
but it just underscores what you're talking about. But the men's group, all right, where you say there might be a homeless guy showing up, and you know somebody's got to pick up the ball and say, okay, yeah, send the dude over. I'll give him a shower and a shirt, and we'll just go from there. That's you. In other words, you can't wait until, and I'm sure you've run into this in your program in Haiti. You can't wait till all your ducks are lined up. You just simply have to go and do. And
Right.
then once you do, then the dominoes fall. Am I wrong?
No, when God calls us to do something, we do it and then trust everything's going to work out. Because nothing would get done if you just wait for everything to fall in order. It's like you've got to just walk by faith and trust God's going to provide. And you know, I'm listening to that story about this woman, and the the story of the guys at the men's group just inviting a homeless, like that seems like a wow factor here. And it's like, dude, it's just like homeless guy. Oh, like let
Yeah.
alone a woman risking her life. It's like we truly only see heroic stuff on television. And the thought of that in our lives is so far away for Americans.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you did what? You invited a homeless guy? And I'm like, he invited a dude. What are you talking about? That's like nothing. It's on
Yeah.
this. It's the apostles all got beat up and killed except for John. All the great saints, the blood of the martyrs, right? The seed of the church. And for us, the blood of the martyrs is like, hey, guess what, man? For Lent this year, I'm not eating chocolate and I'm going to put my air conditioner at 74. And, so
Yeah.
I really want to be with the
I'm going to
Lord
drop
during
my
this time.
excess change into my Operation Rice Bowl cardboard box. That's what I did. I did that for years. I'm not preaching at people. I'm preaching at myself here for years and years. Okay, here's my quarters going into Operation Rice Bowl. I'm helping the poor. All right, there you go. That was my life for a long time.
Killing me.
Yeah, yeah. You know, worrying about anyway. I don't want to go down too much further down. But you're right. Uh, but it brings up. I want to come back to something you said earlier. One of the things about working with the poor is, there's different kinds of poverty in the world. Poverty in, say, to use hackneyed categories, poverty in the third world is a little bit different than poverty in the United States.
Mm.
Uh, I have a priest friend up in, I won't say where. He's an old seminary classmate of mine. But he had an old building on his parish, I think it was a former school that was now closed, and he wanted to transform it into a coffee house for the homeless and a shelter for the homeless and a little soup, and he did. Uh, but this brings us to the different kinds of poverty. The project ended kind of in a disaster. His intentions were great, but the people that came to his coffee house and his shelter were drug addicts and the
Hmm.
mentally ill. Homelessness in the United States is so often the result of drug addiction and or severe mental illness.
Right.
What he discovered was that his parishioners, though behind his project, at first turned on him and like, I mean, there's needles everywhere. There's excrement everywhere. There's drugged out people laying in our parking lot. This is not safe for our children and so forth. So that my point is that, boy, it really drives home. There's nothing romantic about this, is there?
No, it's brutal. And it breaks your heart. Your blood pressure goes up and your bank account goes down. It's y- y- Mother Teresa, she talked about the poverty of loneliness in America. It was a form Loneliness was a form of leprosy in America. And we know for a fact, especially with COVID, that drug users went back not because of their desire for drugs so much, because of lack of companionship and
Yeah,
friendship in this world. And so I get really frustrated when I hear somebody say, "Well, I'm not going to give them their money; they're going to use it for drugs." I'm like, if I see a guy who says, "Hey, give me $20, I need a beer," and they're being honest, I'll go have the beer with them and talk
yeah,
to them. Just know their story, and maybe God's going to help you more than that person. But okay, so this person's a drug user. Well, I can't help that person. I'm like, how do you know? How do you know God's not calling you to even something greater, deeper? One
yeah.
friendship at a time, and it's going to suck. And they might steal money from your house one night, everything, but it's like, that's Jesus, man. Dude,
Yeah, you have to take the time to make the connection. I was once at a conference in Houston, and I was just walking down the street, and this homeless guy came up to me and said, he gave me a whole story. Like, I need $20 so I get a bus so I can go see my brother who's dying of cancer, thus such city, and blah blah blah.
Yep.
And I said, oh, just cut the BS. I said, you want $20? I said, what do you need? He laughed. He goes, I sure would like a McDonald's and a pack of cigarettes. So I took him. I got him.
That's great.
I got him a Big Mac meal, and then we walked over to this convenience store. I bought him a pack of cigarettes and a lighter, and there you go. Someone would say, "Oh, you're giving him cigarettes?" Yeah, I bought him cigarettes. Uh, and we had a nice little chat, a nice little conversation, and off I went, and off he went. But and I'm not saying that to build myself up. I'm saying that
Of course.
to make a point that these are human beings, and there's a certain mendacity that does arise, and a bubble that you have to burst. But part of our vocation as Christians is we have to make the attempt to pierce that bubble. We have to make the attempt to know the human being
That's
staring
right.
us in the face.
That's terrifying today to people.
Yes.
But people have a hard time connecting with somebody who isn't poor, or asking somebody to even go to church, let alone go talk to a prostitute on the side of the road and say, "Tell me your story. I want to know you." Because
Yeah.
everything changes once you know their name. I talk about this a lot. If I'm just making a quick turn here, but I've been a Christian artist for years, and I, sometimes I feel lately like Christian music has become so like, all right, let's get a hit, let's get a mantra. The church is going to love it. Move on. And I love the artist. Do you know who Rich Mullins was?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's my
Yeah.
favorite artist because you look at his face and he was worn and torn because he lived with the poor.
He did.
He wasn't a great singer, he wasn't a great guitar player, but he wrote from a place of pain and suffering like the Psalms that people were just so attracted to. And it, I was having a conversation with a young man the other night who's really into, he wants to be, Catholic singer and music. And I'm like, that's great, but do me a favor, stay with the poor and let their sufferings become your sufferings and watch what God does through your music. It doesn't have to write about the poor, but it's going to fill out every gift you have and make it better if you're willing to enter into that. Every book will have something different and more powerful of a connection. if we're not afraid to let go of the thrones of, well, I'm the speaker guy, I'm the theology guy, and it's like, no, we're just
Yeah.
ragamuffins. And first, we're the hands and feet to the lost, the poor, the suffering, and if that makes sense.
It makes wonderful sense. It's absolutely perfect sense. And I go back and forth with regard to, I'm a suburbanite. I grew up a middle class white boy and white bread, Lincoln, Nebraska, and dad's a fireman, mom's stay at home mom, and blah blah blah, public schools. I've lived a cushy, comfortable life, got myself educated, and lived in the suburbs while I was a professor and so forth. So I have a suburban soul, and so I understand the suburban soul, and I go back and forth as to whether or not the suburban soul is something that you can work through and use and rise above and still do great things for the Lord, or whether or not the suburban soul is toxic and whether or not it doesn't blind us spiritually. I'm not preaching at other people. I'm preaching to myself here.
Right, right, of
That,
course.
that one of the reasons why I quit my job teaching theology was I started to realize that suburban life was toxic to my soul.
Mm,
Uh, and
that's
I don't
powerful.
think I don't think wealthy suburban American Catholics meditate enough upon that. I know I don't. I don't meditate upon it enough um, because I think it holds us back. I really do.
Yeah, it's sort of like, geez, I want to follow you. I did this, 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 and this. Well, do this one last thing.
Yeah,
It's hard to be that person and go that extra step because we we I often find that people in that position in that white suburban, when they pray, it's to a voiceless sculpture where they're saying, Lord, I will do anything as long as I don't hurt financially, as long as my children are safe and we
yeah,
can have Christmas together. And now you're no longer surrendering to God, you're negotiating. Um,
yeah.
and uh, of course, I mean, there's loneliness everywhere. So even in those, it's like at least have the guts to bring up God when you see a neighbor and say, "Hey, we go to church. You'd like to join us?" Heck, I mean, the Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons do it, and they're kicking butt. I mean, so there's got to be at least a little place where you can get out of
Yeah.
your comfort zone for God. But
Uh,
I totally
yeah.
hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm not here to judge anybody. I mean, like I said, I'm not preaching at anyone. I'm just reminiscing about my own spiritual journey and uh, what I see as the toxicity, the spiritual toxicity in my own soul that that kind of suburban affluence led me to. That it's been a lifelong struggle for me to try and get out of that box. I have a former student who I love. He and his wife, former students of mine, who after I had written some piece saying things like I'm saying today, he said, "That's all great, Dr. Chapp, but how do you live that kind of a life when you have 5 kids and a golden doodle?" And it
Yeah.
stopped me short. And he was asking a very good question,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I've I've chosen to live the way I live for the sake of my children. And my primary vocation as a parent is the well-being of my children. And so I have chosen to live in this neighborhood, in this house, in these surroundings for the sake of my children. How then can I live that and yet turn my focus outward towards the poor and all those sorts of things? And I said to him, I said, that's not a question that I can answer. That's only a question I think that each and every individual Catholic can answer for themselves. So anyway, I don't, I'm, that's not a question, but I thought I'd throw that out there.
I mean, it's a valid thing. I live in a safe neighborhood because
Yeah.
I want my kids to be safe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's at odds with doing the work either because, hey, I'm safe. It doesn't mean you have to go to Haiti and start your own thing, but it's like, hey, we've been blessed. We're safe. And what this father needs to realize is that you realize that house in that safe neighborhood is all a gift from God.
I think
Right.
he understands that, right? I
Right.
think he did. Yeah.
So now to love God back, maybe instead of a Disney trip, you bring your family on a mission trip somewhere. Maybe you
Haha.
do maybe you do
Yeah,
make the sandwiches and go down on Thanksgiving and Easter, and you can still do it from there. But we've come to this place where we want to protect our kids so much that we've damaged their spirits that they've become fearful and not.
amen.
Yeah.
I was famous back in my classroom days for telling my students that I thought Disney World was the Antichrist. And then nobody quite understood why in the hell I thought Disney World was the Antichrist. I'm not certain I know. I just have a connatural intuitive instinct, but
Right.
in that regard. But uh, anyway, I'm not going to go down that particular rabbit hole. Anyway, we've been at this now for about an hour and 10 minutes. I should probably wrap this up. Uh,
Right.
I would, if people wanted to send money to your organization, how do they do that?
So, right, our website's Haiti180.org, Haiti180.org. And we just have we have a program called Team 180 Member. We ask for $3.33 a week. We send you a copy of my book. We stay in touch with you, get a picture of some of the kids. They can do more than $3.33 a week, but the more people that I have do that, that helps us to secure knowing at least I can pay the teacher salaries and have the food for 1,500 people. No, people like to give to buildings and put their names on it. But the thing we need most is, hey, I need to make sure every teacher who's been sleeping in a classroom for the past 4 years because we didn't have housing for them, and then teaching that they're all taken care of. So, Haiti180.org. And if they really want to, I don't know if they'll remember this. There's a great two-part documentary on us on Amazon by Chris Stefanik. He has a show called Real Life Catholic. Chris Stefanik, and they came down in a two-part documentary. It's great. Season two, Real Life Catholic, Amazon, and you can see it's two parts. They did a great job if they want to know more. And my book, of course, is available on Amazon. Just type in Haiti 180. Oh,
Uh,
and music on Spotify. I have 57 followers. I'm rocking.
that's great. That's great. So I did not know about the two-part series on your ministry. And do you have to buy it from Amazon or it is
I think it's $1.
oh good. That's a bargain. Very good.
Yeah, and they did such a great job. They made Jesus the hero.
Why
So
don't
it's
you
wonderful.
when we get off the air, send me the link to that and I'll put it in the show notes underneath in the YouTube video so people can go and see it.
I'm not all right. I'll give that a
Well, if you
shot.
can't find it, I'll try and find it. I'll
Okay.
look it up and try and find it. Anyway, hey, well, thanks for coming on the show today. This has been riveting. I could talk to you for another 3 hours, I think, but
Me too, brother. Me too.
God bless you, brother. You're walking the walk. I admire you. I respect you. Thank you, Tom Wayner, if you're listening, for hooking us up.
Thank you.
This is a very, very worthwhile. That sounds cliche. This is a worthwhile endeavor, but it really is. It's fantastic. So thanks, Sean, for being on the show today.
Thank you, brother. I had such a great time talking to you.
Yeah. God bless. All
God
right.
bless.
Bye now.